The Bee fought the New York Times, and the Bee won.
J.R.R. Tolkien is now J.R.R. Woken.
Call me maybe. Or is it ordain a lady?
Female megachurch pastor kidnapped and trafficked to Mexico. Or was she?
What the heck is race norming?
New mask mandate in the works. For cows.
All that and more on
The Bee Weekly.
Hey Babylon Bee fans, are you a huge board gaming nerd like me?
No.
Do you have way too many board games on your shelf already? But you'd probably back another Kickstarter if the game was that good? Ethan
Nope.
shaking his head. But
Probably
you,
not.
the listener, are nodding your head. You need to check out this new epic Christian fantasy dungeon crawler called Deliverance. In this game, you are epic angels, and your mission is to slay demons and protect the saints. Ethan said it was just like an action-packed video game, except you have to do taxes first.
Between each time.
Which for me is a positive. I think I'm like, oh, really? I want to try this.
I want to do math.
I do. You get to play co-op with up to 4 players as epically powerful angels fighting against the demons that hold the town of Fallbrook. So it makes for an epic game night.
What's a dungeon crawler? That doesn't sound appealing to me when you're like, oh, let's crawl around in dungeons.
Yeah, dungeon crawler. It's a classic term taken from Dungeons and
I don't
Dragons.
even want to walk in a dungeon, but crawling. That's
Dungeon
filthy.
crawler means you're moving from room to room, clearing them out of monsters.
Okay, you're not crawling.
You're not actually crawling.
Okay.
It's called a crawl because you move slowly through the dungeon, like trying
Because you
not
got
to
to do all
die.
the math in between.
Because all the math.
Okay.
It's an epic game night that ensures everyone's a better friend than they were before. Aw. Check it out, Deliverance. It's live on Kickstarter right now. It's only live until like July 8th, so back it now and help an awesome Christian game get made. Andrew's a cool guy. We had him on.
Yeah, back it.
Back it.
You guys are so forceful about that. Okay, fine.
You're supposed to say back it, Kira.
Oh, I didn't know, but you guys were just so committed. You should definitely back it because I've never seen Kyle and Ethan more passionate about a board game.
Well, Kyle.
Well, Kyle.
Oh, yes.
And I'm legit excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm legit.
I believe that. I believe that.
Hey, we have an interview coming up with a very exciting person you all have heard of named Dave Rubin. On this Tuesday, it's coming out, and it was an awesome conversation. He actually came out in person.
Yeah, he was here.
We had him on before, but we had to go to his place, and it was when we were just audio. So now we had him in the studio. It was great.
It was fun.
Our second favorite gay guest,
Who's first?
Spencer Clavin.
Oh, yeah, you're wearing a shirt.
Yeah, I'm wearing a shirt
yeah.
today, the Young Heretics. But
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding. They're neck and neck. Both
Neck and neck.
favorite gay. Do we have 2 gay guys' signatures on our door now?
I don't know. So, some could be closeted. We don't know.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, the main thing about Dave Rubin is not that he's gay, but that he's a cool commentator on political stuff. And
We
had him
burned
on.
his book, even though it's called Don't Burn This Book.
So we just burned it.
Just to try it.
Just to be contrary.
Yeah.
And if you're a subscriber, you get the whole thing a day early. So do that.
Nice.
Do it.
Nice.
Hey, we got an update for you guys. We won against the New York Times. Boom.
Woo!
Boom.
We sent them a letter because they had called us far-right misinformation a few times, dangerous misinformation disguised as satire. And they issued a correction last Friday that we are no longer a far-right misinformation site. We are actually a funny satire.
Congratulations for being funny.
Did they
say that?
They didn't say
Someone
funny.
said it
They
out
said
loud.
Babylon Bee is hilarious.
They didn't even add that adjective.
We should have had that in our demand list.
Yeah, you should have put that. You should have made them admit
On
that
second
you're
reading.
a hilarious satire. Site.
You have to admit that all our writers are handsome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The
much
Times has
smarter than
reread
you.
many of the jokes
Yes.
and realized we went over our heads, and now we get them, and we've been laughing all day.
And we understand that the best guest on the Babylon Bee is Kira Davis.
Yes,
that
right.
should have been.
That should have
a part
been
of
in the letter.
That should have been in the. You guys really dropped the ball on that.
We will send a second letter.
I'm rescinding my applause.
More demands.
Yes.
I'm rescinding my applause.
But this is huge because now anytime a paper decides that they want to say that the Babylon Bee is misinformation, because they'll throw that around and like, oh, it's a fake news. It's misinformation.
Yeah.
You better think twice.
Yeah.
New York Times corrected it.
Yeah, it seems like a big deal for them to say we basically. I mean, they basically are saying we're misinformation. They put that in there. Like, why?
Yeah.
It's
To
ridiculous.
just take it out,
The idea.
it implies something.
The idea of something. What did they call it? It's satire.
Far right
No,
Misinformation
under the
disguised.
guise of satire.
under the guise of satire.
It's
Yeah,
just so freaking
Like the satire is the little
condescending
fake
and-
mustache.
Yeah, like under the guise. Oh, they're just trying. They're making you laugh, but really, what they're trying to do is message to you. It just is so. it's ridiculous on so many levels. First of all, the idea that satire is like a cover for anything except humor, but also the fact it's also like everywhere you find humor, there's messaging in it because you're
Right.
a reflection.
When I'm really trying to convince people to change their minds, I add at the end, it's totally a joke. Don't take me seriously.
Yeah, their accusation was basically that we wanted to spread fake news, and so we pretended to be satire so that Facebook wouldn't ban us. That's essentially what they said.
That is
So,
a real far reach.
and it's a big deal because they
Long way
can
around.
the way that this all works is the fact checkers will cite like the New York
Yes.
Times. Well, the New York Times said that there's a misinformation site, and then the social media guys will check with the fact checkers. Oh, yep, New York Times said they're a misinformation site, and then the New York Times will cite themselves and go back and say, yeah, Babylon Bee is a misinformation site, like we reported in our last story,
We've been
even though they just made that up.
we've been muzzled over at Red State since January, really, and it's been a struggle to stay alive.
With the Facebook suppression and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah, same thing. We've seen the same thing.
Yeah, you guys get it. I think
just
everybody
like this.
on the right. Yeah.
Yep.
And so we've had to censor, some of the stuff. Every article we put up gets challenged by the fact checkers.
fact checkers.
And we
COVID.
couldn't even write about the fact checkers. Or like for us, that's a story. That is a story, and we couldn't even write that story. But finally, at one of our sister sites, Katie Pavlich at Town Hall was like, I've had enough. I'm writing about this. Everyone needs to know the circular nature of this fact checking stuff
Very
that they
circular.
do. Yeah. And people who don't understand what's going on, particularly liberals on social media, will be like, well, this is a fact check. But it's like, you don't even know what the fact
and
checker is not a fact checker. It's just a big circle.
Well, and then Facebook pays, they will fund the fact checker
Yes.
to then come back and say, oh, yeah, it's fake. And then we can ban them.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's crazy.
So anyway, big thanks to our subscribers for funding that. Thank you.
Thank
You guys
you,
have poured out your support
subscribers. You guys
to
rock.
make sure we can fight off more attacks like this. You guys want to do some weird news?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
yeah,
do it.
that's my favorite.
What's weird out there?
This news is weird.
Someone in Los Angeles spent several $1,000s to spell out Joe Rogan is literally 5'3" in the sky.
Is he literally 5'3"?
People were saying he's actually like 5'8", so it was even
He
stranger.
doesn't look that short on, but I don't have a high chair, maybe.
You gotta, if you're not on the, you gotta check out this video. I'm sure they'll put it up on the screen. It's bizarre that someone just took one of those Skyriders.
Yeah.
And they used to write it like by actually flying in circles, and now they just have the one that like types it out behind the plane.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
seen
really?
that.
They got
That's
like a-
kind of
you know,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
it's
have you
like
seen like they kind of like,
Yeah.
like a fire.
Morse
It's all
code,
programmed now with a computer to just
Yes.
kind of spell it out.
I've seen
Wow.
those. Is there any indication that it's one of his friends that did it? That sounds like a prank. You know what I
That could
mean?
be.
Like one
But
of
why?
his,
He's not even in LA anymore, right? Isn't he in Dallas or whatever now?
I mean, who
In
knows?
Texas
Maybe
somewhere?
his friend's in LA and just thought it would be funny.
That's bizarre.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
was
it's
it an own?
hilarious.
Crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
maybe, but then I would go a lot
You think she
worse than he's
exposed more
literally
than that.
5'3".
Well, maybe
Yeah, married a long
maybe the
time.
Skywriter place is like, we can't write that in the sky. It's
Oh yeah,
Maybe.
so they keep down.
We'll
I
just do his
said
height.
send them like 30 ideas and like, yeah, we'll go with the
Right.
5'3" thing.
What's bizarre to me is if you're gonna like lie about his height, like why not go real short and just be like he's 4 foot?
Yeah, he's 3 inches tall.
It's like, hey, it's
That's too
5
much.
Yeah.
foot. You know, it's just a weird insult.
The more you talk about it, the deeper the mystery gets.
Right.
It's a mystery.
Yes.
It is a real mystery.
Can we call the skywriting company and be like, who put that order in?
This
Yeah,
is
we
Kira
could.
Davis from Red State.
We should hire Greg Kading. We had on is
Our detective.
He's an investigator.
Yes. We should just go in there and go
have
all like
investigate.
Law and Order. We'd like to see your records.
Yeah.
Bum bum. Was that Law and Order? Did
Yes.
you do the bum bum?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Did you know that bum bum is actually an amalgamation of about 85 different sounds?
Really?
Yeah.
To make the
Yes, I actually read
the full sound.
I
of
read
that
a whole
sound.
essay on how they
That's
developed the
interesting.
bum bum.
That actually interests me.
Yeah.
Be a documentary
I figured
called
it
Bomb
would.
Bomb.
Yeah.
The Tolkien Society hosts Token Diversity Seminar, including topics like Gondor Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities in The Lord of the Rings, and destabilizing cis-hetero amatonormativity in the works of Tolkien. So
This is genuinely
This is real.
hilarious and scary at the same time. You can. I saw this Rod Dreher on his little American his little site
little.
on his American conservative
Belittling.
site on the American conservative site, which is a great site you should check out.
Huge site.
He reported on this.
It's not 5'3".
And I thought, is he trying to write satire? Like, it read like someone was trying to write conservative satire, like, oh,
Yeah,
what if
yeah.
Tolkien was woke, and here's all the Tolkien topics. but it's real. It's very sadly real. And I just tried to click on it. Okay, let's see. So here's some of the papers. The problem of pain portraying physical disability in the fantasy of J.R.R. Tolkien. Applying traumatic stress and ecological frameworks to narratives of displacement and resettlement across cultures in Tolkien's Middle-earth. Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Okay, I want to hear that argument. I might sign up for this just to see how do we go about justifying pardoning literally Satan.
I guess because he's Saruman the many-colored, right? I mean, that's the queer.
He represents...
projecting Indian myths, culture, and history onto Tolkien's works.
Yes, of course, naturally.
Tolkien's dwarf women and the feminine lack.
This is something that my girlfriends and I talk about all the time when we're out for drinks.
Representation of women in the dwarf community.
No.
Oh my god.
What, orcs? Anything with orcs?
No. Is there anything with orcs? No, nothing with
seems
orcs.
Like fantasy would be a place you'd want to go to escape from all this garbage.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you read this one? Did you see this paper? Something mighty queer. Destabilizing cis-hetero amatonormativity.
That's the one he tried to read, but you can't
okay. That's what you tried to read?
Amatonormativity.
Amatonormativity. I looked it up and it was like making marriage normal. Like that's wrong. Like you should, that's...
Is that what that is?
Yeah, marriage being the tradition or the expectation. That's
you guys pray for this country.
I know, right?
Pray for us. What is going on? This is an abomination. And it's also sad. It's also really sad that you would be so desperate for validation in your modern age that you have to backdate everyking, back woke everything. So going back and inserting stuff into
this needs to become, you just coined back woke.
Back woke.
Yeah.
Kira Davis.
Ret woke, what do they call it? Retconning?
Ret woke, yeah, retcon the woke. It's just like,
Retro
no,
woke,
Tolkien was not worried about your heteronormativity, cisgender. Nobody gave a
ignoring
rip. He was ignoring it. Then read something else. Do you know what I mean?
Or just write
This isn't a book for you then.
Right.
It's not a book for you. This isn't a book series for you then. Just go
find your own thing. Make your own thing.
Or write your own thing. Right?
I read one of the commenters on that in Twitter said, Tolkien he thought Vatican II was too liberal. He was one of those that's too liberal. That's the downfall of the Catholic Church and all that. And so he would not have been.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I heard that I heard he really had an issue with C.S. Lewis marrying this woman who I think was divorced or something like that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that too.
Yeah.
He was very conservative in his values.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah, of course they were. Yeah, and C.S. Lewis was too. I mean, there's no doubt that either of those two men would be like just completely losing their minds in this modern day and age. You can't go back. It's like everyone who tries to go back and make Abraham Lincoln gay.
Stop backwoking.
No more backwoking.
It's like backwash.
But he's a linguist, right? Like he'd write these amazing languages and things like that. So he could come up with some great genders.
Oh, he could for sure, and he would name them cool things.
They'd have cool names rather than what are some of the ones like cisgender normative?
Yeah, no, he would come up with really cool names for them.
Yeah, no,
like Gondor.
Yeah.
They'd just be called Gondors. Okay, you got the next story, Kira.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready.
Sorry, we should tell you to be ready.
Be ready at all times.
I really like it when you guys tell me what to do. It's my favorite thing.
You've got the lobster diver story.
Oh, dudes. Yeah, so real sorry. A lobster diver swallowed up by humpback whale off the coast of Massachusetts and spit out 30 seconds later. This story is downright biblical. And when I read this, when I first read this online, I actually was eating dinner with my family. And like most people, I only look at my phone while I'm eating dinner with my family. And I was like, you guys, you have to listen to this. And everybody was immediately horrified. So veteran lobster diver Michael Packard was about 35 feet underwater off the coast of Massachusetts when he was swallowed by a humpback whale. Packard estimates he was trapped inside the mammal for approximately 30 to 40 seconds, which must seem like an eternity.
Yeah, a long time.
He says he had scuba gear on at the time and was breathing while inside the whale. After the whale spit him out at the surface, his boatmate helped him out of the water and headed to shore where he was taken to a hospital. He suffered minimal injuries. I read more of the story, and what he said happened was he thought he felt a thump, like a very firm thump, and then everything went dark. And he actually thought he had been attacked by a shark. And so he was feeling around and he realized, oh, I'm in like a whale. I don't know how he figured that out, but he said he could feel the whale trying to swallow. And he thought, well, this is how I die, which I'm trying to imagine, like the abject terror of like you imagining how you die in the intestines of a whale. Like, how is this going to go?
Right.
Is there acid that burns me up, or will I just drown, or will the muscles crush me? Like, just the thought of that. And then he said the whale's surface shook its head a couple times and literally spit him out.
Did it like launch him?
I don't know. They didn't say.
Whoa!
His friend in the boat just sees him.
That's what I
shooting out
like
of
to
the water.
imagine, that he came out on the blowhole like,
That's the idea. Well, if he had just gone to Nineveh in the first place, none of this would have happened.
I mean,
Is it insulting that like the wheel, like it's nice to not die, but like the fact that you got spit out, like you're gross.
He's like, "Aw,
That's
kind of
good.
hurts."
It kind of hurts. Like, he
good.
probably cleans himself and tries to be appetizing.
Well, that's, another sign of God's creation is that there are a lot of scientists, evolutionary scientists, who posit that the reason why we've been able to stay on top of the food chain is because humans don't really taste that
very
great
good? Huh.
to most animals. So
Really?
that's another, like God is a great designer.
Evidence of
He knew to
design.
make us like crappy tasting.
We're disgusting.
We taste
Evidence of
We're-
design.
Yep, evidence.
Evolutionists
we
owned.
are gross.
Hey, a New
God's
York
creation.
Times columnist, Mara Gay, was really disturbed to see pickup trucks and American flags
Listen.
On Long Island.
driving through Long Island or something. And she said, I was on Long Island this weekend visiting a really dear friend, and I was really disturbed. I saw dozens and dozens of pickup trucks with explicatives
Explicatives.
Expletives.
against
But
Joe
she said explicatives.
against Joe Biden on the back of them, Trump flags. And
Oh my gosh, what?
And in some cases, just trigger warning for our listeners, just dozens of American flags,
Dozens?
which is also just disturbing because essentially the message was clear. It was, this is my country. This is not your country. I own this. And so until we're ready to have this conversation, this will continue. People will
Flags.
continue to put up flags until we have this conversation.
Wait until you see what's about to happen this July 4th.
Oh my.
Flags
Oh,
everywhere.
yeah,
Everywhere.
That's true.
Everywhere. Like everywhere you go, even at the grocery store. It'll be just buckle up. Listen, Mara Gay, I want to remind everybody, Mara Gay is the opinion editor at New York Times, and she is the one who went on national television with Brian Williams to discuss Mike Bloomberg's budget for his presidential campaign, and had the nerve and intelligence to say that of the $500 million that Mike Bloomberg spent on his campaign, he could have taken that money and given every single American $1 million.
This is that one. Remember
Yeah,
that?
I remember that.
When
This
with
is the
Brian Williams?
opinion editor of the New York.
So she's the one that
Times.
concocted that math? Like
Yes,
she
that was her math.
She invented that?
And then Brian Williams was like, it's really quite amazing.
Yeah.
And he just he
They
went
did
right
a
along
whole
with it.
segment on it. They did, and then the next day when we ran it, because that was a big story, that one earned me a
That
lot
was
of clicks.
classic.
I happened to be watching it right when it came up, so I happened to be one of the first people to grab that clip and put it up. And
I made that connection later, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, that's the same girl. And I'm like, it all makes
we
sense
should
now.
be worried for what's going on at the New York Times. I mean, we started the show with some news about what happened here at the Bee, but look, just on a more serious note here, it's time. This is the paper of record. It still has a reputation
Babylon Bee?
as no,
Oh,
not the
neither.
Babylon Bee.
Oh.
Babylon Bee is actually satire.
Oh,
Kyle.
okay.
It's hilarious.
No,
Hilarious
it's
satire.
hilarious satire. And this is the paper that a lot of people still look to as authoritative on the information that they send you. And this is the caliber of people that are running the paper. I think that is important to know. I don't like to be insulting that. You guys know that I don't like to judge people. And
Well, we can't say anything about her
I'm going to
because
say this about Mara Gay. She's completely incompetent, and it's embarrassing that she's in that position.
when people
She's a woman of
criticized
color
her,
and she's gay.
when people criticized her for her math, she said this was a kind of racism. When people said, "What?"
Yes.
We were making fun of her. So
Yeah.
you were welcome to say anything you want about her.
It is, yeah, right? It's a kind of racism. It's, if you guys point out that I'm an abject idiot, that's racism.
She said, Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. The U.S. population, 327 million. He could have given each American $1 million and have had lunch money left over. And William said, it's an incredible way of putting it.
That's an incredible way of putting it.
And she said, it's true. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's just, the
It is
whole segment
incredible.
was disturbing.
Incredible.
Oh gosh, Mara. And now she's
Not
triggered
credible.
by flags. And she's the opinion editor at the New York Times. I mean, she
Tells
has
you a
one
lot.
of the most influential journalistic positions. And it tells you a lot about the type of news you're getting. Is this like, honest to goodness, people, liberals, if you look at this woman and listen to what she says, is this the type of person that your authoritative news is coming from? It's ridiculous. And we're all supposed to look away and pretend like there's some kind of genius or intelligence coming out of this person's mouth. Because why? Because she's a woman and she's black. She's a moron.
She said it.
What she said.
Yeah.
We didn't criticize Mara Gay at all.
None of this would have been in the
That
show
didn't come from
if
us.
we hadn't had Kira on. It's perfect.
Welcome to our new segment. She said it.
Kira, we like to allow.
She said it. She said
Not
it.
us.
Like this.
We like to give voice to women of color.
Yes, that's what
You
we do on
guys
this
are
program.
good people. That's
Yeah.
going to be a.
So
on a-
we sit back and
just say-
silence.
when
we
you're
wanna
at the
do.
gates of heaven and St. Peter's, like, what did you guys do? You'd be like, we gave voice.
Yes.
Yes.
A black
We
woman.
gave it.
we gave her her voice. Yeah.
Gave it to you.
We allowed her to
You would have
speak.
had no voice if it weren't for
true,
us.
yes.
We platformed you.
St. Peter will be like, well done, my good and faithful servant.
I don't think it's Peter that says that.
Oh, no? Okay.
I think it's your turn.
People now want cows to wear masks to fight global warming.
Yeah.
So the University of California recently found that a single...
Oh, the University of California? That's shocking. Is that where that came from?
Yeah.
Shocking.
They found that a single cow can produce 220 pounds of methane annually. Man, that's still way more than that, but that's a lot of pounds. And 95% of that comes from the cow's burps. Those are heavy burps.
Okay.
This Zelp Limited, Zelp, a UK startup, has developed a mask that they claim can reduce methane emissions by 53%. And it's a burp catcher, and it also it turns the methane into carbon dioxide. It can detect when the cow is in heat. That's perfect, as well as act as a GPS. So like the cow's lost. Like where's
Where's the mask?
Where's Bessie? She's in New Jersey. I don't know.
Why are they adding all these features onto this mask?
But it's only $80 a cow. That's pretty good for a crazy cyborg mask that does all this stuff.
This feels like the Homer car. Like they're just adding more, like little horn and a cup holder. Why does it need all this?
Can you talk to the cow? It's like, calm down, Bessie.
Bessie, come in. I feel like now are there going to be like libertarian cows that resist and they're anti-maskers, and then you're going to have.
Well, it seems like
the
making an
pro-masker.
animal wear a mask for like 4 years. That's
Yeah,
what it says. They last
they're-
4 years. That's a lot. Wearing a mask nonstop.
And being a cow is probably already not that great.
Yeah, and you're gonna get killed. I mean, we're for eating animals, but not being cruel to them, right? I mean, that's
Well, there's also a proposal from the environmental crowd to capture, I'm sure you guys have probably already covered it here in the Babylon Bee, to capture cow farts.
right.
So now we're talking about putting a device on both ends of the cow. Like, who really is the monster here?
They're just walking around with the.
What are we doing?
I imagine the cows are all gonna look like Bane on both ends, like from Batman. Like, what are they now gonna moo like that?
Oh my goodness.
When they fart. Sorry. That's my Bane fart.
Okay.
You know, if the Bane mask was on your butt and
Yeah.
you farted.
Okay. Got it,
I
Ethan.
understood it.
Good,
first
good,
time.
good. This is the next one mine.
You're up.
You're up.
All right, guys. LA nun to plead guilty to stealing $800,000 from school to pay for a gambling habit.
Not that kind of habit.
Ethan's been waiting
Oh, I
all
get it.
day. He's
I
been
get
waiting
it
all
now.
day to make that joke. Retired nun Mary Margaret Cooper has admitted to embezzling about $835,000 in donations, tuition, and fee money from St. James Catholic School between 2008 and 2018. Cooper, who was the school principal for 28 years, controlled accounts at a credit union, including a savings account for the school and one established to pay the living expenses of the nuns employed by the schools. This is what the U.S. Attorney's Office says. And in her plea agreement, Kruper acknowledged diverting money to pay for personal expenses that included credit card charges and large gambling expenses incurred at casinos. She could face up to 40 years in federal prison.
Dang.
Wow. Well,
So how big did she win?
Did they suspect like she pulls up and
Sorry, guys. Continue. You're supposed to just talk past me. I'll make little jokes that nobody notices, and then I'll see people comment on them in the comments.
we actually have in our mailbag this week.
I got my fan base in there.
In our mailbag this week, in the subscriber portion, someone comments on that, so we're going to talk about that.
Ethan's little jokes.
About the side jokes, yeah.
Side jokes. Bonus
Okay.
jokes.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. This isn't actually the first time I've read a story like this. Gambling among nuns and priests is actually much more common than people think. And I'm not sure that if you take them as a subsection of society, if it's any more common than in any other group, but people forget that nuns and being a nun and being a priest is a vocation. You're just a person, you know? And gambling is actually pretty popular among nuns, I think. So I wasn't totally shocked to hear this. And I just think it's a funny image that we have in our mind, but they're just people too.
All the nuns standing around the craps table. Lucky 7, baby!
Yeah.
She'd probably argue the issue wasn't black and white. That's a nun joke.
Google Trends analysis reveals each state's...
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you.
I got it.
I love the delayed Patrick laugh.
I think he was laughing because I just blew right past you and ignored it.
No, he's laughing at my joke.
Yeah, right. That.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, Google Trends analysis has revealed each state's most misspelled word. And quarantine was a popular
This is the
one.
best. Really, this is a lame article because mostly it's like received or which or the. Yeah, well, not the, but.
But I'm sure the is misspelled a lot, but they just excluded it. Because when you're just typing real fast.
I think it's mostly people
I just
searching.
count on Google to
I mistype all the time, and it's like, well, who cares? Google's going to figure it out. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And they're like,
I think they mostly basically when people are searching how to spell a word and they get it wrong. But this is funny.
The most common misspelling of quarantine was quarantine.
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 Like
Two
a teenager made of corn.
quarantine.
So they've been thinking, why are they talking about quarantines?
Okay, quarantine.
And this was the most common spelling. Okay, yeah.
It sounds like an award.
And that's a lot. Colorado, Connecticut, Indiana, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, Nevada, Oregon, Tennessee, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Quarantine.
It sounds like what they would call their prom queen in like Iowa.
Yeah, quarantine.
Miss Quarantine 2018.
And then she'll have to, when she gets a hit show on NBC, she'll have to apologize for being the quarantine
I have to
queen.
apologize to everyone. I was the quarantine in 2018, and that was associated with the KKK.
In 1682.
Banned U.S. Olympian blames pork burrito for positive steroid test.
Sure. I do that all the time too.
It can lead to a false positive for nandrolone. Nandrolone.
Something. Pig organs. I guess she ate a giant pig organ burrito.
Yeah.
From like a food
Give me
truck.
the pig organ.
From some Mexican food truck. Though I'd read, she actually did document what she ate around the time to make sure that just to be safe. So she actually had documentation of what she ate.
She has a receipt like from the food truck.
And there's a specific kind of food where it has like pig organ meat that's in this burrito, which sounds epic, like a pig organ burrito. But
wow.
Apparently it does sound horrible. I mean, if it's true that she ate this pig organ burrito, like she submitted all this stuff, did a lie detector test, had her hair tested, tried to do everything she could, and they still did not accept her explanation, held up the ban. And so she's out. Can you imagine if just from eating a pig burrito, you just got your entire like life's work is gone?
I've eaten some burritos that almost would be worth it.
Yeah, that's the question. Was it worth it?
Yeah.
Because it could have been a really good burrito.
Yeah,
would be
no
terrible
one's
if it was a
asked
bad
that. I
burrito.
didn't find that.
That's the key question.
That is the key question.
There's this Mexican place in San Diego that does something called the Huicho Loco burrito, and it's a giant like California burrito, and then they fry 2 taquitos and stuff them inside.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys,
We got to do that on our food segment we're working on.
Yes.
I don't like burritos.
What?
Why not? It's just a meal you can
Sorry.
hold.
Oh, I know.
It's like a meal in a wrap. You know, like
Sorry,
it's a
Patrick,
swaddled.
did you just boo me?
It's a swaddled
got
meal.
booed.
Like
How
you know when
very
you
dare you?
like a baby
I
that you can eat.
want to like burritos, but I think this
Like
is
a
a
baby.
very California thing that I never picked up when I moved from the
California.
Midwest.
It's Mexico.
Yeah, but it's but even we have Mexicans in the Midwest, but burritos are not nearly as like prevalent.
Wait.
Like I've seen them, but here it's like everywhere you go, even if you go to a meeting, there's breakfast burritos. It just
I wish
are
that was the
everywhere.
case.
I
We need
Breakfast
more
burritos are the
Do
greatest.
you guys want burritos for lunch? Have we
love
ordered lunch yet?
burritos. You-
I could eat a
you
breakfast
have
burrito
breakfast.
every meal.
No, yes. We haven't ordered yet.
Okay.
Do you people see how they just did? They're gonna order? I just said I don't like burritos, and now Kyle's gonna order burritos.
Can you order
We'll get you a
burritos for
taquito or
everyone
something.
and get a salad for her?
Yeah, what do you want?
What do you
I
want?
don't want a salad.
Is there any Mexican food you like, or do you just hate all Mexican food?
No, wait. Mexican
Nachos?
food. I like nachos. Yeah, I'm not. I have a very bland palate.
I just love that a
Sorry.
burrito.
I'm not going to apologize
everything's
for it,
encased.
Kyle. I'm not going to apologize
hold
for
it.
it.
Oh, I
It's
don't know.
Sorry.
bundled and swaddled, so
I would like it. I would like to like it. I just can't. I don't like it. So
It's
anyways,
called El
we're here.
Rodeo Mexican food, and it's in La Mesa. If you live in La Mesa, check
little
it out.
advertisement.
The Huicho Loco. Get it.
okay. Huicho Loco. I want to try that.
My husband loves it though, so we'll go try it.
Whose turn is it?
I think it's
Mine.
Kira's.
It's my
It's
turn.
a big story here.
It's a big one. Golden Retriever gives woodchuck a ride to shore in Massachusetts Lake.
You keep getting Massachusetts stories.
Yes, a woman
Massachusetts.
visiting a Massachusetts lake with her dog captured video when the canine picked up an unexpected passenger in the water, a hitchhiking woodchuck.
A hitchchuck.
She says she wasn't sure if the woodchuck was in some kind of distress or just lazy. My money's on lazy
There's
because
video. I think the woodchuck just thought it was a log or something. Was just like, oh, I'll just rest on this
Yeah.
log, and then it looked and it started looking at him. It's like it has a face.
Yeah.
And
don't know.
then
Maybe the
because it was really short. The video, you can watch the video.
maybe the woodchuck is like me. Like I'll do anything for a party story, I'm a woodchuck in the
Yeah,
water.
his friends dared him.
Like,
They dared to go get on that dog's back.
There's a dog.
Like, it's gonna bite me. Like, no, they're totally out of control in the water. They can't do hardly anything. You just get on his back. He's helpless. Yeah. The story, the news, if you watch it, it's like a news report. Like a news reporter actually went out to talk to this woman about
Wow.
the dog giving the woodchuck a ride. And then there's I guess there's a moment where they touched noses and they called it that they gave each other a kiss. Like they really embellished it and added there's some real bonding going on
So it was a
there.
real cute local news story
Yeah.
type thing.
I wonder how that news reporter feels about the story. Were they excited or were they like,
This on my resume?
I got to get to the big time. I'm so sick of these local stories.
Yeah, I
went to school for
That's
6
the
years.
Groundhog Day story.
This is the
Punxsutawney.
Punxsutawney
of a
Phil.
movie.
All right, our final weird news story is that a Norwegian man did hang for
Did
16 minutes to break a world record.
A dead hang.
I read this story wrong.
Yeah, me too.
At first I was skimming and I thought I read Norwegian man hangs
Dead.
16 people dead.
Oh, I didn't realize
That's
that.
kind of what I was.
I don't think they give out world records. for them.
I thought that it was about a guy who'd hung himself, and then he beat the record for how long somebody had been
Right.
hanging until their body was found.
That was my second interpretation.
What do you guys think they give out Guinness records for?
But what's a dead hang?
It's
That just mean you just
this.
relax?
Yeah.
That seems like you could do that for longer than 16 minutes.
No, you
very
try
hard.
it. It's hard.
Is it
Very
hard?
hard, yeah.
Your
Well, I know I
'cause
couldn't do it.
It's
My
your
arms
whole
would-
body weight.
Don't they do
Yeah.
that in like Vegas? And they
But
tell
you're
you
relaxing,
they'll
though.
give you money if you can hang on the bar for 2 minutes.
Oh, really?
Vegas?
Like when you're walking
So
down the
that's a
street, and
long
most
time?
people can't do it.
No, I've never.
But what if
seen
you're a little
that.
light person,
Well, this
Michael
guy,
Malice or
this guy has cerebral palsy and he's in a wheelchair, so he must just be bulking up his arms all the time. He probably doesn't have a lot of leg mass.
Yeah,
So I don't-
he said he worked out a lot. The article said he worked out a lot.
Yeah,
And dead hang was part of his workout routine. And yeah.
dead hang.
he's trained for 10 hours a week on the dead hang to do this. I accept this guy as a real record
okay.
holder.
Well, yeah, you don't want to disparage the cerebral palsy
Well,
community
the dead hang is really hard to do. So
and the
that's
wheelchair community.
Yeah.
That would seem like if I was going to break a physical world record,
Yeah, a physical
the one
one.
where I don't have to do anything,
Just hang
probably
there.
the one where
It
I
seems
would
like
try.
the-
Yeah.
It just seems like the alive hang would be
All right.
harder.
We're going to get a bar in here and we're going to see how long Ethan can
not saying
dead
that-
hang.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. I'm heavy. My arms are chicken arms, but
No, I know. I
it sounds
can do
less
it.
impressive than any other kind of hang. It's just dead. That's all I'm saying.
What are the other kinds of hang?
Well, I don't know. Is there an alive hang or like a lively hang or just a tents hang or,
Well,
trying to get up there hang. I don't know. I don't know these hangs. I'm not a hang guy. We should move on.
Okay. But we have established that
we're just hanging out.
He's not a hang guy.
All right.
Great.
I'm not a hang guy.
Let's do some heroes of the faith.
And now, it's time for this week's Heroes of the Faith.
But first, Ethan's going to cough. And we want to remind you to become a Babylon Bee subscriber so Ethan can afford cough medicine.
Yeah.
And support
lozenges.
us, support us in our fight against censorship and attacks from places like the New York Times and stuff. And you get some cool stuff for jumping into the Babylon Bee community.
Yeah, not to mention our bonus podcast.
You get bonus podcast, ad reads.
Free.
You get a book.
Discount
when
on
you
the
sign
store.
up.
Free book right now. Just
We got a cool
amazing.
comment section where everybody fights to be the first commenter.
yeah.
Nice. Like Reddit.
It's like
Yeah.
Reddit, except we actually encourage it, and they do it ironically, and they do it, and they try to act like they're first, but then actually miss it. So then you have like 10 people that say first on every article.
This would not be a selling point for me.
It's great.
Some
great.
people like it. Some people like it. It's like a game. It's like
an
a treasure
inside
hunt.
joke.
Yes.
Yeah, we
And you are
there's a lot
not on the inside of the joke unless you subscribe.
There's a lot of inside jokes in the bee community. You got to get in there.
It's a fun
Wanna
community.
be on the inside.
Comments, headline forum, premium articles. We got bloopers, extended video, and you get the interview show a day early. So lots of cool stuff. Sign up.
Way cool.
BabylonB.com/plans. Talking about
did-
how great the subscription is. Ethan's like, meh.
I have to tell you.
It's only that. Lots of people saying first a bunch in the comments.
It's funny. It's really
Before
funny.
you guys go
I like that
on-
it's like satire of comment sections. Anyway. all right.
Before you go on, Kyle, I have to tell you that one of my subscribers to my subscription community, which is at Dave Rubin's website, davisnation.locals.com. That's where
Locals,
you can find me.
yeah.
Oh, Locals, yeah.
I mentioned I was coming to the Bee today, and this person, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, sorry, said, am I a nerd because I subscribe to the Bee podcast only to listen to their Lord of the Rings podcast?
Yes.
There you go.
They said they don't listen to any, they don't listen
We
to
do
the
it.
regular
It's all
podcast
worth
to
it.
see anything else.
Oh, which by the
Only
way, we're
Lord
on
of the Rings
we're on a
pod.
little hiatus. It's coming back soon.
I take that personally because I'm not involved in that at all.
Well, me too. They weren't even saying like they were tuning in to
Yeah.
see me. When this is a person in my community.
That's
and,
true.
I just
That's
tune
brutal,
in
man.
for the Lord of the Rings podcast.
Hey, Lord of the Rings
You're
podcast.
a jerk.
Oh yeah, Lord of the Rings podcast. If you subscribe to the Babylon Bee, we have a Lord of the Rings podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing a read through. It's fun. We're on 2 towers. So we have this crazy story for you in Heroes of the Faith today of Amy Semple McPherson. She was the founder of the Foursquare Gospel Movement, which is really popular out here in LA.
Yeah, I only heard about this for the first time reading the story.
Really?
I never
Foursquare?
heard of
My dad went to a
Foursquare.
Foursquare church.
It was real popular out here,
That's crazy.
maybe West Coast. I don't know that it's spread. I mean, it is, it is everywhere, but I think it was concentrated around here because this is where she established her church. She was kind of the Benny Hinn of her day. She drove around doing tent meetings. Early on, her and her husband sold their house and lived out of something they called the gospel car. It had the gospel on the side, and they would drive
a
around.
car?
Okay.
And it was a car.
Okay.
And then her husband decided, you know what, I don't want to live out of a car anymore, and
So they
divorced her.
divorced.
And she remarried and then immediately fractured her skull and visited Europe. And then she was reading the newspaper and she saw that her husband was doing a cabaret show with a bunch of, half-naked women.
Bunch of floozies.
And he was labeling himself as Amy's Man.
Amy's.
Hey, come see the Amy's Man show.
Oh.
And
Okay. How did she fracture her skull?
I don't know. It's just like she had an accident and fell or something.
A lot happens in this story.
Yeah.
Keep up
try
with
to keep
it.
up.
there's a
Whatever.
So she
lot.
started driving around in a convertible, preaching out of a bullhorn out of the back of the car after they
This
got
is
divorced.
after she divorced the
So this has
second
been
husband.
divorced second time.
So she drives and bullhorns at the same time?
I think she would drive, park, and it's like sit in the trunk or
okay.
something.
I
and
was thinking like Blues Brothers.
No. So finally she moves to Los Angeles, raises enough money to build a giant megachurch, the Angelus Temple,
Jealous.
and she performs faith healings, speaking in tongues, and a lot of the stuff you think about megachurches today, like they do a big play or they have like all this crazy sermon illustrations, that all started with Amy Semple McPherson.
She invented that?
Well, pretty much like doing a big show as part of the deal. She would
Okay.
she would get Hollywood actors to come in costume and do all kinds of performances.
Okay.
One time her plane crashed in front of her whole congregation, and so she
Was that on purpose or on accident?
the plane
Crashing.
that was an accident.
Okay. And
So then the next Sunday, she like does like the plane crashes of your life, and she tells this whole thing.
I felt like she was preaching and the plane crashed behind her and she just turned it into an illustration right there.
One time she got a traffic ticket, and then the next Sunday she dressed up as a police officer for the sermon and gave this whole sermon about breaking God's law and all this stuff.
And now she didn't deserve to get a traffic
ticket. She gave about 22 sermons a week.
Wow.
Into a packed house of 5,000 attendees in LA. This was huge. This was 1920s, 1910s, 1920s.
This is why women should be preachers. They need to quiet down a little bit.
Exactly.
Look what happens.
This is what happens. Hey,
talk too much.
She said it.
You'll have to go back. You need to be a B subscriber to hear my
opinion.
Oh,
opinions
we
on
talked
women in
about
the pulpit. I think that was one of my first
that was way back.
appearances.
It was amazing.
I'm now the Alec Baldwin of the Babylon Bee podcast. Tom Hanks.
So this is where the story gets weird.
Okay.
Oh, this is where it gets weird. Okay.
At the height of her fame, on May 18th, 1926, she went for a swim at Venice Beach and completely disappeared. She was supposed to give a sermon that day for her mom, so her mom filled in for her and said, well, she's with Jesus now. And so it sparked all these rumors that she had died, and everyone freaked out. And this was like one of the first big media frenzies over a celebrity.
Mourning for days.
Yeah.
The newspapers really fueled the whole thing. It was headlines all over the country. So suddenly she was real popular in LA, and all of a sudden she became like this national, like the most well-known woman in the country in the 1920s. And we've never heard of her.
I've never heard
like
of her.
Bizarre.
It's wild.
That is crazy.
So there was rumors of a conspiracy that she had planned this whole thing. Randos from all over the country were calling in McPherson sightings, and the detectives were saying that one day they got 16 different sightings of her all over the country. Letters were pouring in asking for ransom, but they were all fake.
Claiming to have kidnapped her.
Yeah. And so no one could find her for a whole month.
Wow. She's gone.
Until, this is where it gets crazy.
This is where it gets
A month later, she staggered across the Mexican desert and approached a Mexican couple and collapsed in front of them. So she appeared across the Arizona border in Sonora, Mexico, and she claimed 4 people had held her hostage in a shack in the Mexican desert. So she said while she was at the beach, someone came up in a car and said, "Can you pray for my sick child?" She went to their car, they chloroformed her, threw her in the back, and took her to Mexico.
Okay.
She said she cut her cords with a tin can lid and then just walked outside and saw a mountain and said, "That's north," and followed it until she, like 20 miles across the Mexican desert until she got there.
Eating scorpions and snakes, although to survive cactuses.
On the train ride back to LA, a man came up and said, "Hey, I just saw you in Arizona last week." Many others came forward claiming to have seen her all over as well. And when she arrived back in Los Angeles, 50,000 people were there to greet her at the station.
That's insane to me.
Isn't it crazy?
Is this real?
So grand juries were called in to investigate her disappearance. People were saying there's no way she could have walked across the desert. They said they found tire tracks that had just dropped her off right there. They said that her shoes were fine and her clothes were fine and she wasn't in any state of disrepair like she had walked across the desert. They couldn't find the shack she was talking about. And this is where the story gets good.
Oh, is this okay? This is where it gets crazy.
Investigators eventually found out that she was probably having an affair with her radio operator, Kenneth Ormiston.
Old Kenneth Ormiston.
And right around the time that she disappeared, he had rented a house up in Monterey, and multiple witnesses said that they had seen her move into the house shortly after her disappearance. And then the prosecution were trying to convict her of doing conspiracy and hoaxes and all this stuff. And the prosecution couldn't get the witnesses to agree. They kept losing evidence. And Ormiston had his defense, no, I was having an affair with a different woman, not her. And the prosecution found slips of paper that she had written on at the cottage during this time, but they were mysteriously lost. And the prosecutor found this out in the courtroom, and he was so mad he picked up a bar stool and he threw it across the courtroom. And she was never convicted of any wrongdoing.
Wow.
And this is where it really gets good.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting.
The kidnappers continued to contact them through a blind attorney. So they were talking to a blind attorney.
So literally, the guy can't see.
A guy can't see.
Oh, right.
So it's Daredevil.
Yeah, he's Daredevil. And he's blind, so he can't rat them out to anybody. That's why they contacted him.
Oh.
And the attorney announced he had conclusive evidence that the kidnappers were real, and he was going to reveal it, and then he died in a car accident.
Oh.
Oof.
That's bad luck.
Why is he driving? He's a blind attorney.
I assume he was in the passenger seat. Several ransom notes were sent to the temple. Some were fraudulent. Others, it wasn't proven if they were genuine. And we just, to this day, have no idea what happened.
Do you say genuine?
Genuine? Genuine?
I'm just curious.
Genuine.
Wow, so may never know what happened.
That's a
That is a
fascinating story.
movie right there.
I actually went online while you were recounting that, and I looked up the Angelus Temple because I was like, is that still in LA? And it still is LA. It still is a Foursquare church. I don't know if the building itself is historical. I mean, obviously, it has a very LA church, mega church look to it now. But yeah, it was just like it looks pretty evangelical.
She has a mansion she had a mansion in Lake Elsinore that I drive by every day. It's a big castle up on the mountain. Yeah. So
how did you find this story?
I heard about it years ago. And when he said we're doing Heroes of the Faith, I was like, this is the perfect one. So she did eventually die of a drug overdose in like 1944, if I remember right.
But the
so she's way
Angelus
back
Temple is still there. It's on Glendale Boulevard.
But it's hard to like overstate how popular she was at the time. She was like the most well-known like celebrity woman in the country, like Hollywood star status.
Yeah.
And just disappeared.
That is so crazy
It would be like Joel Osteen like disappearing.
Yeah.
And then like 4 weeks later coming stumbling out of the Mexican desert. Like that's how crazy this story is.
That is bizarre.
And it's weird to think too, like just on another note, like the perception of that time would be that like women were so oppressed.
Right.
Yeah.
But to have like, there's a super mega star pastor woman that of this caliber at that time.
Yeah, that she was
it
doing
doesn't
this.
line up exactly. I'm not saying that they weren't oppressed in some ways, but like
history's
that
always more
complicates it.
complicated.
It complicates it.
Well, the 1920s, it was like jazz and women were getting popular.
No, the women's movement really started in the 20s. I mean, if you think about it in the form that a lot of people, we always look at history as if it's sanitized, but it's not. I mean, you look at the Bohemian movement, and some of our greatest poets and philosophers were in the 1700s, in the 1800s, forming communes and say, we shouldn't just be limited to marriage. We should be sexually free, and we should live together as one. And I mean, the idea that somehow everybody was just perfect and buttoned up. And I mean, even if you look into the history of Black people in this country, I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to see 12 Years a Slave. It's a really good movie. It's tough to watch. Like, I can only watch it once, but it's
like Passion of the Christ.
Yeah. Yes.
Great movie. Can only watch it once.
Same, but it's an artistic achievement. It really is. It's an excellent film all the way around. But it's based on a true story, kind of like this story that you just read, Kyle, that got lost in the annals of time. This wasn't a story that anyone had told, but it was a kind of a little pamphlet that was available on Amazon. And then the writer, John Lee Hancock, I think that's who wrote it, picked up this book and was like, oh. But anyways, if you read it, it tells a very different story of another experience that Black Americans were having at the time in some places in the North, which was that there were entire towns where Black people just lived with white people as part of the society, where the gentleman in this case was a violinist and he was a homeowner, and there were pockets of life in America at that time where Black people and white people did live together and did do business together. There was no such thing as segregation. They really blended their lives, and it wasn't a big deal. Now, obviously, it was a big deal in other places because this is a story about a man who was kidnapped back into slavery. And it wasn't like that everywhere, obviously. But I remember I went to read the actual story, and I remember saying to a friend of mine, this shows us that everything is more complicated than we think. We have this sanitized view of history at this point in our lives. We look back and we think it's perfect, but it's complicated. There's some of this and a lot of that. And, the relationships between, even when we look back in the Bible, the relationships between men and women, there are a lot of people who will tell you like, women were oppressed and they were just things. And the Bible is an anti-woman tome, but again, relationships and leadership positions and everything, it was complicated. It was way more nuanced than we give history credit for.
Seems like every generation thinks they're act 3 of the story of the world.
That's a good
So everything, we've learned, we've got the good guys and the bad guys, and they turn on the simple, good guy versus bad guy thing.
Yeah.
And the redemption at the end is going to storm the castle. And
Everyone thinks they're on the right side of history.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being able to take an insane story like that and turn it into a teaching moment.
Literally my job. I do this every day. And my podcast is Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis, and you can find it wherever you listen to your podcast.
We should try to come up with the most random topic and see if she could turn it into.
I can turn I have 12 years of media training. I can turn anything into anything. And that's why I never work when I go on shows like Fox, people will be like, I don't know how, my husband especially, is very nervous in front of people. He's like, I don't know how you do it. Like, what are you talking about tonight? Well, these are the subjects they gave us, but they're never the subjects that when the cameras turn on that, everything changes. So I never even, okay, this is maybe what we're talking about, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, doesn't that make you sick to your stomach? Like, don't you get afraid? I'm like, no, because I don't need to know what I'm talking about to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I know how to do it. So
That's a good skill to
trade
have.
secrets. Yeah. So if you ever want to test me sometime.
Hey, Kira, what the heck is race norming? Can you explain that to me like I'm a white 5-year-old?
I'm so glad you asked, Kyle. Race norming. I don't know. Race norming is something that I just found out about. I read an AP story.
I'm reading your Red State piece right now.
Okay, don't read it.
Don't read
Tell
it?
me. Okay, tell me if I just by the term race norming, if you had to guess what that means, if you had to apply something.
Trying to run faster than
Race
Norm
norming.
MacDonald.
Okay.
Okay. Race norming. So maybe like normalizing something for race.
Okay.
Like normalizing equity, race stuff, equality.
Like
And you say the NFL is admitting to it. So what could
Yep.
the NFL do? Like,
it's like they're normalizing what?
right? Like, I don't know, standards of inclusion or something.
I feel like whenever
Okay.
normalize is used, that means what they're saying is this is a reality I really don't like. We need to
normalize.
They want to
they wanna
denormalize a thing
denormalize.
that's just a thing that
They don't.
nobody like, as if somebody insidiously made it happen.
we can't normalize that.
Like we talked about earlier, the denormalizing of the family, I think. Was it?
Yeah.
Or no, marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is race norming? Were we close?
I'm out of is it anything
No.
like I'm out of normativity, or is that what it's called? Something like
Nope. Race norming is a practice where the NFL, you may recall, has established this $1 billion fund for concussions, where they denied the concussion. So you could, as a player who has been injured, you can apply for this fund. Well, black players are saying they're being denied at a greater rate than white players for compensation from this fund. And the NFL, as their defense, says we use a practice called race norming, which is meant to, you're not going to believe this, it initiates it measures the cognitive abilities of black players at a lower level than white players. So that, because they're saying the cognitive abilities of black people are less than white people. And so when you're measuring how those cognitive abilities have been damaged, you start them out on a lower cognitive level than the white people. So basically black people are dumber than white people. And so it's harder to prove that they have brain injuries.
Oh my gosh.
That is race norming.
And they're doing this in the name of trying to compensate for.
Yeah. So here's what here's what happened. The NFL is saying this is a legitimate policy, that they're using this policy to deny, right? They're saying this is a legitimate policy. Now, this is why this is a crazy story. The AP dropped this story a couple of weeks ago, just real quietly. I was like, what? It said the NFL agrees to stop using race norming. I'm like, why isn't the left all over this? This sounds crazy. This sounds like made for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
So I do my research. Well, it turns out that the reason why the NFL is using this as a defense, and the reason why this hasn't gained traction, is that race norming is actually an official government policy established by the Carter administration. And it was meant to help, quote, even the playing field for black people to get more jobs in government, because black people couldn't test into the jobs in government. And so what the Carter administration said is, well, maybe it's because black people aren't as smart. So what we have to do is we have to measure them by different standards. So we have to understand when we grade their tests that they're taking these tests, they don't have the same abilities as white people. So we have to lower the bar in grading. They're starting out behind the 8 ball in intelligence. And so in order to even the playing field and even the scores, right? This is an official government policy that we still use today. Sorry to bang on the table.
So
I know that's
while
bad
the
form,
NFL's
but yeah.
having like Black Lives Matter jets fly over and Black Lives Matter blimps, they're doing this?
Yeah.
That's
Isn't
Well,
that
not just them though. So you're saying like this is
like a thing that's
it started with
government-
Carter.
Yeah, no,
So
as far
where
as
else is
I
this
know,
implemented?
it's still implemented in government testing standards. As far as I know, in federal government testing standards. So what the NFL
Did the KKK come up with this? Because this sounds
no, Kyle, liberal, tolerant.
I feel like we need another
liberals.
KKK cartoon. Like,
No,
Yeah.
are you some kind
Race
of
norming.
racist?
That's great.
No, this is so the NFL used this, and that was their justification, right? That was their defense at trial because there's two players that are suing them, and that was their defense. They're like,
Well, the
this is a
government doesn't.
government policy, and we're just using this same thing. So, yeah, and I couldn't understand why, and I could only find like a couple of articles on race norming, and it was by liberal sports writers, but it was really quiet. It was really quiet. No one has been really talking about this, but this is like a huge deal. Basically, the NFL is saying that black players are too mentally retarded to have brain injuries. That's the NFL's argument.
Or like they're already as dumb as the guy with a brain injury when they start the football.
That's right.
They're like, you were already that dumb before.
You're coming. I got a brain injury. No, that's just how you.
No, we can't prove. Basically, I did an episode on it. If you want to go look it up on my podcast, just listen to yourself. But I was so like blown away that this wasn't a huge, like, to me, it sounds like tailor made for the woke crowd, right? Like this is actual racism.
There's actual racism and nobody's.
And everyone's just
but
like,
it had
no
the
one's
right
screaming about it.
intentions.
And that's what the two liberal articles I read said about it. Well, they pulled the good intention stuff, and I'm like, how can you even be okay with that? Like,
This feels like something that 100%
You're on
of people,
board with this?
except the 5 KKK guys that are left, could all like link arms and be like, yes, this is bad, right?
But I also
guys
love that it's
have
that
some new
unintended
material.
consequences thing. Like they start with a problem, that like the black community is not testing well. So then they lower the standards for the test and all kind
Right.
of comes back around.
Yeah.
And here we are.
not why aren't black people meeting the educational standards and
improve?
how do we
Yeah.
change that? They're doing that across the country now with AP courses, right? We're seeing that New York's having this big fight. Florida already had the fight and I believe lost some years ago with their at least K through 12 math courses where they've lowered the bars for black students or removed AP courses because black students get into those courses less. And it's like, how is this equity? How is this justice? I know how it's equity. How is it equality, which are two different things? How is this justice? Is like, instead of addressing the problem, which is black people aren't achieving to these standards that other kids are, instead of addressing that problem, they're like, oh, well, we just have to make other kids dumber. And then it's just so ridiculous. It's like, sometimes I'm just like, is this real life? Like sometimes I have to call my father-in-law who's like, why is this person I know? And he's the reason why I'm conservative. And sometimes I just have to call him and be like, am I crazy? Like, just tell me, am I crazy? Do I need to stop doing this? Am I in the wrong business? Do I have this whole thing wrong? Because I look around me some days and I just feel like I'm the last sane person left.
Right.
I don't know. This blew my mind, and I have been screaming bloody murder about it for about 2 weeks. I just cannot believe that this is not a huge story.
That's wild.
I don't even know what to make of it. Like,
Yeah, it has nothing, when you guys guessed what race
Yeah,
norming
I don't know.
was,
Yeah, I
know,
you're
not
like,
close.
well, it's got to be some kind of equity thing or equality or bringing, it sounds.
yeah, I was but my honest guess was something like normalizing black people being more prone to play football or something, or or an NBA or something, basketball or
It's
something.
that black people aren't smart enough to be brain injured. That's race norming. And it's an official policy of the NFL. And the other thing is, why wouldn't the left jump on this? Don't they hate the NFL? Don't they hate Roger Goodell?
Is that how brain damage works? Like, if you're already dumb, then you can just damage your brain up and like you don't get dumber.
Like
I
feel like
guess.
it would still take you
It
down.
feels like it would still take you down. I would love to see the test that they would do before you join the NFL. Like, hey, we need to get a dumb rating out of you to make sure that when you damage
what's
your
the
brain a
standard?
bunch, we'll find out if you're any dumber.
Actual medical professionals were using those standards.
I want to know what the test looks like.
Yeah, these men had to be examined by actual medical professionals and given this race norming diagnosis. Like, yeah, they should be suing the pants off the NFL. But shame on the mainstream media for leaving this alone because it proves the futility of liberal policy when it comes to race, which is it's always I say this all the time. It's always trying to correct a lie with another lie. And you can't fix a lie with another lie. The lie that black people are dumber than white people cannot be fixed with a lie that you have to lower the bar for black people. Or can't be fixed by the lie that black people are smarter than white people. You can't fix a lie with a lie. And right now in mainstream America, there's a whole group of people who are asking us to repair the lies that we've been living with just more lies. And no wonder everyone's so confused.
So they're always trying to find a way
Kyle's
to
still
avoid.
trying to work it out in his brain.
So race norming is bad.
It's bad.
Okay, got it. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
I got it.
Race norming bad.
Yes.
I've got it brain. I have brain damage. Here we go. Hate mail.
Yay, hate mail.
Oh, great. This is fun.
Adam Ford.
So we sent our demand letter to the New York Times, and we informed our newsletter subscribers, hey, we're going to be sending this letter to the Times. Please support us, blah, blah, blah. And this guy replied.
Okay.
And he said, holy
Hacksaw.
You've actually sent a threatening letter to a news outlet because they stated how they perceived you. I will say that you've managed to fall into the same douchebaggery that I actually visit your site to avoid. What the
Flower bed.
Guys? Short
Donkey.
syndrome getting worse?
Short doc syndrome.
He didn't say that.
Donkey. Yeah.
Thanks for the email.
Answer the question. Answer the question. Are you going to answer the question? Answer it.
I do think that if you look at it as like
short donk
purely that
syndrome?
we're just like litigious and we just want to attack the New York Times for insulting our pride, and I think some people think that's what we're doing.
That's the concern.
Like people do need to understand that, like what we talked about before, they cite themselves, circular citations where they use this when they say authoritatively that we are, we are, what is it, far right misinformation under the guise of satire. That becomes a citation that is used in a fact check that is used to shut us down on Facebook. So that's why anytime that's said about us, we have to come after it.
Let me read. So Jezebel, the feminist website,
Jezebel,
related to the
Big
Onion,
fan of Jezebel, actually.
They wrote an article about us a couple years ago, and they said Snopes is fighting with a right-wing humor site with satire that's so unfunny it reads like fake news. So that's a headline we obviously disagree with, but we didn't sue Jezebel because who cares? Let the feminists say we're unfunny. That's kind of a compliment coming from a feminist.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
When you have a big newspaper like the New York Times, like the most popular newspaper in the world,
The paper of record. Yes.
Say that you are a far-right misinformation site that is tricking Facebook by saying you're satire.
Yeah.
That is a problem. That's bigger than
different.
just a perception thing.
Right.
It's much bigger because then it flags your site. People don't understand how much you depend on Facebook and Twitter, just those two, to get, I mean, not you, but like all of us in this industry, just to get it's about reach, right? That's why people, when conservatives complain about losing followers on Twitter, it's not, I mean, I'm sure some people are just big-headed about it, but it's not about the follower count and you feeling special. That's your reach.
Right.
The amount of followers you have represents your reach. So what Twitter is doing when they shave off your followers is they're limiting your reach. And it's the same way with what New York Times was doing, getting Facebook to flag it as a problem. You get the red flag. Facebook's fact checkers, which are just paid by Facebook, now have this red flag on the satire site. So now every article you put up gets fact checked as problematic and now gets booted off Facebook.
Yep, exactly.
There goes your reach. So, but also, I don't know if this email was real because there's a bunch of people out there who are just concern trolls who just will, they're of the opposite ideology, but they'll show up on your site and they'll be like, I'm a committed conservative, but I think it, but you're not, you just think I'll listen to you if I think you're on my side. But there is a whole crop of, I think on the right, a whole crop of elitist conservatives that are popping up right now to tell us that we shouldn't be pushing back at it, at anything, that you're just like the left, or I like to make the left live by their own cancel culture rules. I hate cancel culture. It should be gone, but it's not going to go until we make them follow their own rules. So if someone needs to get canceled over there, that's not my problem.
Yeah, don't stand up for anything. Don't fight back against anything. They're private companies. They do what they want, all that.
That's how we got here. That's how we get people. People are starting to complain about critical race theory and people pushing back. Conservatives complaining about us pushing back on. That's very anti-conservative.
This is anti-free speech is the other one I heard.
No,
you're
it's
banning
not.
books and all.
Oh, guess what? We can ban Marxism in our schools if we want to. That makes sense. Like this is America, but it's the whole idea that says, "Welcome to." She said it. The new section here on segment here on Babylon Bee, but that this
just
whole
listen to
idea,
herself.
We need to do an overlay of me and Ethan going like this, and then it's just she said it.
It just ticks me off when I hear stuff like that. I'm like, this is how we got to where we are, where we have no say in the culture and no control over the culture, because every time somebody stepped up, there would be some high-minded conservative out there who would be like, this really isn't our battle. We're not these people. Everyone should have free expression. Well, if someone else's free expression is actually breaking down the very fabric of the most successful society in America, that's a problem. Fight back, people. We don't have all the time in the world.
And you can free express against it, right? It's
right. It's like
controlling speech.
You just have to let them say whatever you want. Don't say anything.
Anyway, sorry. That guy's a hater at the end of the day.
You know what? I know we're running out of time here. Short
donkey
syndrome.
This is our new.
So is the idea?
And he says short
donkey
syndrome, and he says getting worse. So that means that we've had it in the beginning.
But the idea that like you
donkey,
is that like little man syndrome?
Donkey.
It's too short, so you have to send a legal letter to the New York Times.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, what's the connection? I don't get.
Oh, big guy.
Yeah. I don't get the like. I've never understood that.
Yeah. Well, that's the way to prove that you have a big
donkey.
You send a strongly worded letter.
I'm going to send a letter to the New York Times, then everyone will know.
Right.
So
in short, you might still have, I don't know how to get the details.
But we will reveal more details in the subscriber portion, which we're going into now. So we're going to do, in the subscriber portion today, we're going to talk more New York Times drama, subscriber headlines of the week. We have 2 bonus hate mails today, and we have a letter from the mailbag. This really is a mega episode.
Mega episode.
See you there.
Let's do it.
Kira Stravaganza.
Coming up next for Babylon Bee subscribers.
Did my daughter tell me the other day, I texted her and I ended the sentence with a period. And then she was like, that's aggressive, Mom.
Aggressive?
Yeah, she's like, why are you being so aggressive? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I just said, can you come put your dishes away, please? She's like, you ended it with a period.
You use punctuation.
Aggressive. My husband hates The Office. He cannot watch any show where anyone is in any kind of uncomfortable.
It is hard to watch
situation.
some of those super awkward ones. Yeah.
Oh, Scott's Tots?
Oh, I can't watch Scott.
Wondering what they'll say next? The rest of this podcast is in our super exclusive premium subscriber lounge. Go to babylonbee.com/plans for full-length ad-free podcasts. Kyle and Ethan would like to thank Seth Dillon for paying the bills, Adam Ford for creating their job, the other writers for tirelessly pitching headlines, the subscribers, and you, the listener. Until next time, this is Dave D'Andrea, the voice of the Babylon Bee.